Because of the events that unfolded over the last few weeks, I decided to devote this week to talks on racism. This week is called Racism Week. All I ask is that you have an open mind and please ask questions. Good evening. I'm Dave England, the host of Wine with Dave. Started on April 1st, and mainly out of boredom, because I thought we were going to be stuck with the COVID virus forever. And it's grown into something I really love. I really look forward to it. I'm kind of on a high just doing this, and I'm grateful. But if this is your first time here, leave a comment. Tell me where you're from. Just type it in. Tell me what city, town. And if it's your first time, just type that in. Just say first time listening, first time following. And also, if this is your first time, just please like and share the page. Just go ahead and just hit the like button. I know there's a lot of people already on already. You've just broken a record. It's got to be the topic for the week. And let me just start right away. I don't want to waste any time. A few weeks ago, on May 28th, I watched a video of the last moments of George Floyd's life. It affected me deeply. I wasn't going to talk about it on the show that night, but I ended up saying something, and I ended up getting pretty emotional at the same time. I said that I need to change the format for at least a day and really, really talk about what's happening in our country. I love our country. I love the people in it. I am fascinated by all walks of life. If anyone who knows me, that's who I am. But it started as a day, and then I said, well, maybe I can do 2 days devoted to it. Well, here we are. It's race week. It's a full week. And boy, did it fill up quick. I've got some really good guests. And this week, I'm going black and white, as you can tell. If you can't tell, then you got to get some glasses on, I guess. But I'm going black and white for 2 reasons. One is I think it's pretty hip and cool to go black and white every now and then, right? It's nice and grainy. It's kind of a cool, hip look. But really, and more importantly, I think the issues of racism is just that. It is black and white. There's no gray area. It's black and white. Blacks and minorities have not been treated the same as whites. That's black and white. It's clear as a bell. Now, that's my opinion. I don't know anyone that disagrees with it. There may be some, and I don't look down on you. But if you are here and you think that that's not black and white and there are issues in the middle, that's fine. You are invited to watch and comment. And I'm open to listening to your reasoning, and that would be really good. And by the way, if you type in a comment, it shows up on the screen. And man, we got a lot of people here. Oh my gosh, we got Alinda Brito. Oh, it's right over my face. Let me do that. How are you, Alinda? Great to have you on the show and watch. Type away, whatever you have to say. What's your name again? Wine with Dave. My name is Dave. Jennifer Rourke, first time. Awesome. Glad to have you, Jennifer. We're going to show a video of Jennifer in just about 2 minutes. Alana, hi, Dave. It is who you are. Cool. Thanks for committing to the topic, Melissa. Thank you. Love the black and white. People like the black and white. That's good. I might keep it. I didn't know if anyone would like that. Let me get into a Did You Know section, but I'm not going to do it cutesy. I'm just going to make 3 Did You Knows, and I'm just going to not cut to another scene. A few weeks ago, I'm reading the wrong notes. Hang in there. First time for everything. Did you know in New York City, 88% of police stops in 2018 involved Black and Latinx people, while 10% involved white people. Of those stops, 70% were completely innocent. It's taken from the New York Civil Liberties Union stop and frisk data. Did you know research has found significant associations between racial bullying in negative mental and physical health in students. Research by the Adolescent Health and Harassment Based on Discriminatory Bias. And lastly, did you know Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to be arrested? Once arrested, they are more likely to be convicted. And once convicted, they are more likely to experience lengthy prison sentence. And that's taken from the Sentencing Project report to the United Nations on racial disparities in the U.S. criminal justice system. So that's my Did You Knows. I want to talk about something right now. I saw a video the other day from Jennifer Rourke, and she's on tonight, and it moved me to tears, and it angered me. It was really bad, and there's some hope in it, and I wanted to play it tonight. I really, really wanted to play it tonight, and I said, it's just not the right thing if I don't ask permission. So I went to Facebook, and I did a little Google search in Facebook. I don't know if they call it a Google search. I don't know if they call it a Google search. Facebook search. And I found her. And I inboxed her. And I said, I was very moved by your video. Could I play it tonight? And she said yes. So I am going to play it tonight. And thankfully, she's on. She is commenting. I just saw her show up. So I want to play this. It's about 2 minutes, and it's really moving. So here it is.
I've been called the N-word before, but I've never been told to get lynched. My name is Jennifer Rourke, and I am a candidate for Rhode Island State Senate. And last night, I was holding a town hall with 2 fellow candidates, and a group of people decided to log on and fill our Q&A with paragraphs of the N-word. They told me I had a big nose. They told me that I was ugly. I can deal with that stuff. But they told me to get lynched. In today's world, with everything that's happening, less than 24 hours after George Floyd was killed, that's the message I received, to get lynched. It's hard enough being a candidate. It's hard as hell being Black. But it's the toughest job I've ever had in my life, to be a Black woman running for office. I need y'all to understand that this is happening. It happened to Cori Bush, where she had to post, if something happens to me, I didn't kill myself, because she was being followed. I need y'all to do something. Speak up, speak out. I don't know what to do anymore, but I will tell you this, I am not giving up. You can call me all the names in the book, but I am not going anywhere. I am not afraid of you. And I will tell you, your words hurt, yes, but they have not deterred me from my path.
Wow. I really appreciate Jennifer for sharing that. That's really moving. She's a candidate for the Rhode Island State Senate, and I asked her if I could play that video, and she said yes. So find her on Facebook, Jennifer Rourke, R-O-U-R-K-E. R-O-U-R-K-E. Jennifer Rourke is a candidate for the Rhode Island State Senate. Tell her what you think about that video, and just share away. Diane is, hi Dave, I'm watching, that's cool. Glad you're watching. And Ray, a shame things like this still happen. Yeah, you're right, Ray. Steve Mason, no words. not to be funny, but you spelled words wrong. No words. But, oh, Jennifer's here. Thank you for sharing. So this is Jennifer right here. She's commenting. So you can follow her. Click her name. Go follow her. Find out more about her if you want to vote for her. What a story. That should not be happening. This is 2020, people. This is not. This is just not right. I'm so sorry, Jennifer, says Melissa. So I'm going to get right into my guest because I don't want to waste too much time. I really want to use as much time as I can. This week is great. Tomorrow night I have Justice Smith. He's a homeschooled 16-year-old boy, good friends with his parents, becoming pretty good friends with him. Very, very smart. And his dad said he's like an old sage. He's a wise kid. Cannot wait to have Justice on the show. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll let you know in the coming days. But we have a whole week planned. So originally California, Joe Reddish is here. Originally from California, Joe has been a part of Rhode Island for over 27 years. He served as council president of Richmond, Rhode Island for 8 of the past 10 years on the city council. He believes strongly in community involvement as he also serves on the boards of the, and check this out, this guy is smart, AIDS Care Ocean State. He's committed. Community2000.org. He's on the board for Wood River Health Services. He's on the board for People to People International. He's on the board, the State of Rhode Island Public Finance Management Board. And most importantly, and where I'm really, really happy he's on tonight, he's joining us today as the chair of the Rhode Island Commission on Prejudice and Bias. Folks, I introduce you to a good friend, Joe Reddish.
Hey,
Dave, Joe.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me on tonight. I'm glad to have the opportunity, and I'm glad you shared the video of Jennifer. And I'll reach out and say to Jennifer, that is the hardest thing to go through when you're trying to be in public service, and just be yourself and be somebody. And that's really the timeliness of this conversation. Really is that the commission was designed to protect against that kind of behavior. From individuals in our community. And unfortunately, we have a lot of individuals out there that feel that that's okay, and it's not. And so that's why I'm glad I'm able to be part of the conversation this evening.
Oh, man. And you know, you're the perfect first guest to kick off the week. So you better be good, Joe.
I'll try my best. That's tough, you know.
Oh, it's easy. Your list of credentials is very impressive. I don't know how you have time for anything else, but it just shows you got a lot of passion. Let's get right into this. Why was the Commission on Prejudice and Bias created? What was the reason for that?
Well, if you remember way back when, probably about 30 years ago or so, we had a thing called racial profiling. And that was a huge challenge across the nation, but also in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island legislators chose to step up to the plate and try and put a stake in the ground to put a stop to that and start monitoring and start trying to move the needle forward. Our mission is to study and report on all forms of prejudice and hatred in Rhode Island, and to revise and codify, if possible, all laws relating to all forms of prejudice, bias, and hatred. So over the last 30 or so years, the organization has worked with the Attorney General's office and a number of law enforcement officials, community members, and legislative individuals to drive the process forward. One of our biggest opportunities and challenges is most people don't know the commission exists.
I didn't. I had no idea.
And I'll say this out, say this a few times. We have a website that's on calloutprejudice.rhodeisland.org that people can report challenges. So similar to what Jennifer just experienced, that's something that would be reported to our website, and then we work with you to track down and try and educate an individual who chooses to act that way, or if they've taken more of an aggressive, threatening stance, we work with law enforcement in the Attorney General's office to bring those people forward so that they know that that's not acceptable in the state of Rhode Island.
What has been the commission's focus over the years, and why is it important to Rhode Island communities?
Well, the biggest thing Rhode Islanders really need to understand is the commission, tasked with the Attorney General's office, provides training to all recruits from the state level to college law enforcement to local law enforcement on how to identify hate crimes, how to identify bias and prejudice, but at the same time on how they need to be sensitive to the different communities, marginalized communities and individuals, and how they approach individuals out in our communities in addressing these challenges. Quite often we find that people are afraid to come to the police. We're experiencing this across the nation right now in some, states and towns, and we know that we're not perfect, but that's why we have this training program. But the program starts back with the basics. It starts off with training, really identifying the origins of hate by showing the history of hate. Quite often we've found, and I've sat in on a couple of these classes as well as being a guest speaker, but as the young men and women of all colors and backgrounds sit through this, many of them do not know the history of hate around the world or even locally or nationally. And so they start with the basics and work forward. And then the foundation of the conversation is really the federal level description of what hate and bias is.
Wow. You were telling me about earlier about the resilience factor. Is
Well,
this
the
what you're learning in
resilience
that class? Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, so resiliency is something that I've picked up, and one of the things that we as a society really don't have not been taught, and it's a key piece to our ability to work with challenges as we're existing right now. And there's seven inner strengths of resiliency, and I picked this up as a training course that I sit in, the discussion on Wednesday, once a week on a Wednesday. It's called Power Thinking, but it talks about seven strengths of resiliency, and that's our emotion regulation, that's ability to stay calm under pressure, our impulse control, the ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind. And I'll use an example there. If I got pulled over, 27 years ago when I first moved to Rhode Island by a police officer. I won't say the city, doesn't matter, but I was driving a brand new, SUV because I just moved here to work for a corporation. And he pulled me over, and I'm from California. And they said, "Officer, how can I help you?" They said, "Well, you passed a police officer." And I says, "Well, yeah, I know I did, sir, but the speed limit is 55. His response was to me, "Well, the speed limit's 50. I was doing 50 and you passed me, and you're not supposed to pass a police officer." And I responded very calmly, so managing my emotion regulation, and just really said, "Well, I understand that. However, where I come from, we're allowed to, you're allowed to pass a police officer unless he's doing," I use the terminology, a wig-wag with the lights on. And that tells me there's danger ahead. None of those things were happening. And he kind of looked at me, and his response was, "Well, you're not supposed to pass police officer." And then I responded to him. I said, "Well, let me show you my ID." And I said, "I'm going," and I just followed procedure, didn't get excited. I said, "I'm going to grab my business card. I'm going to give you my license. I do own the vehicle," which we kind of know why. That's why you pulled me over tonight, but I'm going to give you this. And you'll see that I was recruited by one of the largest corporations in your state. And I says, "I do know the rules of the law." And I said, "Somebody knows where I'm supposed to be tonight." I said, "How would you like to proceed?" And at that point, he backed off from his conversation and, trying to intimidate me at that point in time. The challenge and opportunity is we, as all of us, and I was raised a little bit differently to know that I don't have to tolerate certain things, but I was taught how to respond to those. And so to try and keep the lid lower, it helped manage that situation. And that's where some of the resiliency skills and things that, are out there, I think we need to teach our, continue to educate our law enforcement, but we also need to give our communities the tools to manage to that so they're not afraid.
Right, right.
Right.
You told me earlier. Oops, sorry. You told me earlier today, and actually a few weeks ago, when I met you a while ago, you said you had different labels growing up. Do you
Yes.
mind talking about that? It's a little comical, sort of, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So when I guest speak at the police academy, when I have that opportunity, one of the things I talk about, I say, back in 1960 when Mr. Reddish was born, and I pause and I says, "Excuse me, class." I says, "Mr. Reddish looked like he was born in 1960." No, sir. So they're very respectful, and I said, well, I says, I was. I says, so some things in life are not a myth. I says, it is true that literally black doesn't crack. I says, but back in 1960, I was known as Negro, colored, and that word that rhymes with wigger. And then I tease him a little bit. I says, well, in Rhode Island, since you don't use ours, it would rhyme with wigga. And I says, at some point in time in 1970, I was labeled black, and then by the late 90s, I was labeled African American. And I say, at that point in time, I put a stake in the ground. And the reason I put a stake in the ground is because this class is really about teaching about equality. I said, I took on the label of hue enriched. And the fact is, we are all part of the same hue, but different shades. Some hue enriched, some hue challenged, some, hue translucent, and I always kind of tease, and the freckle faced kid there, hey, we'll play a little game of connected dots. But the bottom line is, hue is the definition of the spectrum of color.
Mm.
And we are all part of the same spectrum of color. So we all come from the same base. We just have to learn how to respect each other. And the piece that I share with the officers is when you get to a situation, you can't see color. You need to see the situation and evaluate based on the situation. When you walk out of that room of training, you need to put your past experiences and learnings behind you, and focus on the fact that you are there to protect and serve, and you are there to make a difference, and that's why we want you out there.
Mm. So, how are you feeling right now? Is there hope seeing these hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on the streets? Is any concern that you have for what's going on? I mean, there must be.
My biggest concern is we've had a lot of energy um, that's taken place. Now, really, we can't move forward until we're really to set and own the next actions.
Mm.
And I know there's been rioting, there's been this, but there's been lots of peaceful protests, and so on. Now we need to take that energy and now put it into action. Um, and we have to remember that not all law enforcement are bad. We have bad
Right.
eggs and everything. If you get a dozen eggs or 18 eggs from Stop and Shop, the chances are you're going to get a bad one in there. The key is having a process that's very clean, that's competent and confident for everybody to be able to have the confidence to say, okay, that bad one's going to get out of there quickly before it happens. So in the real world, if we're in Stop and Shop, we usually open up our eggs and look for the cracked one before we buy the batch. We
Mm-hmm.
probably need to do a better job, in hiring, and then also making sure we give our law enforcement the tools to be able to respond properly. At the same time, it's a two-edged sword. We as a community need to know that we have some place we can go and confidently feel that our voice will be heard and that changes will take place. But it takes both sides. So
Mm-hmm.
the thing I instill in our community is if something happens, you have to find somebody to tell. The commission is here. We have the website, call out prejudicerhodeisland.org. You can report it there. Go to your chief of police, because the chiefs of police are on board with the commission on ensuring that their law enforcement teams are doing the right thing. You've seen quick action in some of the cities in Rhode Island recently on individuals who are not doing what they're supposed to do. But we have to follow the process. We got to build a process. We have a process in Rhode Island that is the chair of the commission and the commission members, which is made up of clergy, law enforcement, attorney generals, legislators, and community members. That's a process that we trust, but the process can't work if we don't use it.
Right, right. Jennifer O'Rourke says, thank you, Joe, for your kind words there. And a bunch of people. So let me see. Lori Tritz. Hi, Joe. Good work. So, Joe, if someone, so the whole calloutprejudiceRI.org, that's where you go to report something. How likely is it that someone, and I'm just saying this, I'm stupid to this, okay? What if someone were to go and report something, but they were just being a little oversensitive, and maybe, how does that process work? People, like, say you go to a store,
right,
and you're a young 20-year-old black man, and you just feel like there's a weird vibe there, and then you report that. What actually happens at that time?
Well, we have a team that works with different facets. We partner with the Institute of Nonviolence and other organizations, and we figure out what's the best way to approach it. So we have members of the commission, we have other partner organizations that we work with, and we go and we ask questions. We'll ask the individual, what did they experience? And just to use an example, we're working with the Burrowville situation to really find out, okay, what went on, with the kids, and what was assumed to be said or what was actually said, and then we try and provide support and training to guide everybody on both sides so that we come to an understanding and a clarity and a correction. There are times that that we involve the Attorney General's office. If there's like a hate crime that's taking place, the Attorney General's office will take it at that point, and they'll investigate it and follow up, and they'll take the appropriate action.
Right.
At that time. So we have all the right partners. We just have to have the information. In Rhode Island last year or the year before, when the statistics were out, we had less than 10 hate crimes reported. Well, we know from a statistical standpoint there's probably more, because not everybody's comfortable saying something because they think it's going to come back on them. We can't help or be successful if we don't have the information. Similar to Jennifer's situation that just took place, she probably didn't know where to go. Now there's a venue where she can reach out and share with us more, and we can start, if she wants more assistance with what happened, so that we can monitor that. That's what we're here to do.
So give me some specifics on time. So say you're that 20-year-old black man, you're in a store, a regular local food mart or something, and then you're getting a weird vibe, and like, this guy is just, there's just something wrong. Like, I didn't do anything, and I'm just feeling that. And then they call out Prejudice RI, which, by the way, guys, that's below his name. Just write that down. How long does it take? Because you guys have to meet and get together and proceed. So this poor kid, I'm just saying, poor kid he fills out a form. By the time you guys receive the email and plan, is it a week later? Is it?
Well, that's a great question, and our response is usually within 24 to 48 hours. We have somebody that monitors our website. If they call in, which it comes into the helpline, they're trained to get information over to, if it comes into our area, if somebody calls in directly. But if it comes to the website, within 24 to 48 hours or less, we are reaching out to that individual if they provided us the information that we can get a hold of them.
Oh, that's quick. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
We are ready. We want the information. We have the resources to, quickly respond. And our goal is that we start getting this, because the only way to fix it is to know about it and then work with doing the inappropriate thing to let them know it's not acceptable. That they will, if they're just mildly unacceptable, we're going to teach and coach. If they're doing something illegal, we'll get it to the Attorney General's office, and they'll make the decision if it's, a hate crime or a bias or whatever. If it's in a school environment, we're going to work with the school to provide training for the young people. We have, our law enforcement partners actually go out into the schools. We just had a program this last year, which was absolutely wonderful and successful, called Creating Safer Communities, where we brought law enforcement in for an all-day seminar that was headed by the Matthew Shepard Foundation, and Cynthia Dial, who is a retired FBI specialist, taught the class. At the tail end of the course, we brought community in so that there could be interaction for everybody to kind of share how they feel on both sides, so that hopefully moving forward they know that they could reach out and talk. And we literally, we had a number of the chiefs that stood up and said, here's my cell phone number. If you don't feel comfortable going to your local, call my cell phone directly and I'll help you. And that was the energy. But that was just a small group. We have to figure out how to replicate this throughout the state, so that everybody has that feeling to make a difference.
Right. That's wonderful. Hey, guys, leave a question. If you have a question for Joe, this is interactive. This whole show is about interactive. You type something in, it's going to show up on the screen, just like Lori Tritt said, "Hi, Joel, good work." I click on your comment and bring you right on screen. So if you have anything, that would be great. And I have a question for Joe, too. First, Dan Izzo, that response time is fantastic. Awesome to hear all you guys do. Yeah, I know, Dan. That was, I mean, I didn't know about Call Out Prejudice RI. Did not know. That's definitely something you bookmark. So let me ask you a question. How do you feel, or did you feel, about white people growing up? Because you've got those labels thrown at you. You were telling me even 5 years old. How did you feel about white people?
So I was raised in California, as I shared. My parents were both educators in the school system. And I had probably the opposite experience of most individuals of color. So I typically was one of 3 or 4 black kids in all white school. And that was by choice of our parents because they were educators. When I was younger, I still remember about 5 or 6, I was in the car coming home with my mom, and I said, "Somebody called me black." And my mom reminded me of this story. And she said, "Yeah, and she just kind of made it matter of fact, and I said, "And what?" She says, "Well, what are you?" And I said, "Well, black." And she said, "What's the challenge? That's who you are. Don't let that bother you." Over the years, Stockton was one of our school. My graduating class was the first desegregated high school class, and there was 3 high schools. Our school had a total mixture, and everybody, I shouldn't say ironically, faithfully got along in our school, because we were young, we understood the environment. The teachers all taught us that we were all the same and we should treat each other with respect. The other high schools weren't perfect, but we were the one that really kind of grew together. If I look at where my parents chose to live, they made a decision early in life that they were going to live where they wanted to live. So when I grew up, we moved out into a different neighborhood, and all of their close friends moved in a different. Those neighborhoods happened to be white. I still remember when I was growing up, my very best friend, was white. His grandmother, at that time, wonderful woman, was prejudiced. But part of that was that she really never had experience. She was taught, and I say she was taught to be prejudiced. She learned by being around me, and experiencing myself and my parents that, they're friends with that family today, and so on. So it's a lot of it's about experiencing on both sides, to make a difference, and hear each other, and not allowing others to affect our thinking.
So Diane has a question. Well, not question, statement. See, this is the thing. I never knew this existed either. It's going to be about getting the word out there is a place to go to when you see something happening and that is wrong. And also, Steve Mason is just asking, Joe, how are you getting the word out to the black community? Is there any advertising, or
Well,
how do they even know about this?
well, we have partnerships with NAACP. We have partnerships with the Institute of Nonviolence. One of the things we recognize as a commission, and one of the challenges we don't have a formal budget. We're funded by grants. One of our goals is really, because of everything going on, this is the time for the commission to be able, hopefully, to get some funding from the state, to start putting a better visual out there, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's on a billboard, and so on. So if there's websites that you know of that we should be linking to, we have a Facebook page, we have a website, um, which we try and push out to the communities. But it's like the newspaper. We've run some ads. We have press releases and things like that. Not everybody reads the newspaper. Not everybody reads social media. So it's going to be a strong push for word of mouth. But really, right now, we need to know where we need to be to start advertising or making ourselves available.
Well, that's kind of my thing. A little side note, I think any store, little marts, little grocery stores, whatever, local
Yeah.
pizza shops should have a sign, call out Prejudice RI, if they are part of the cause. And they're saying, look, we are against that, and we're going to put a sign up here in case you come. Of course, no one's going to, call them out. No one's going to be called out by them, because why would they put the sign up if they're racist to begin with? I mean, quite honestly. But I think that's a great way to do that. It's a great opportunity. Really
That's a great
quickly,
suggestion.
Melissa is asking, what is the 7 aspects of resiliency you mentioned? Real quick, because we have a few more questions.
All 7 of them are emotion regulation, which is ability to stay calm under pressure; impulse control, the ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind; empathy, the ability to understand another person's experiences, emotions; self-efficacy, the belief that you have control over your ability to succeed; optimism, the view that all things will ultimately have a successful outcome; causal analysis, a systematic way of finding the root cause of a situation or a problem, and then reaching out, taking the initiative to connect with others and take action when faced with setbacks and challenges. And all of these can be found on a website called Power Thinking. But by self actualizing and learning these types of things, these give us all a common ground and skill set to be able to communicate. And there's some other factors that come in behind these, but you can find those at the Power of Thinking website.
Yeah, so I would think empathy might be a tough one of the 7. What do we call it? Resilience, because if someone's being mean to you and throwing slurs at you and racial slurs and whatever, the last thing you're thinking is, let me be empathetic towards it. Maybe they don't mean it. Maybe they're having a bad day. I mean, that's got to be the hardest one, right?
Right. And so if we take it back to just our normal relationships, and it's not related to race or racism, and you have a friend or a colleague or a partner or a husband or a wife or whatever, and you think about in your relationship about empathy, quite often we end up in the worst positions in life because we haven't learned to be empathetic. And part of one of the tools that was taught by Power of Thinking is one that's called the iceberg effect. And the iceberg effect is, quite often we only look at what's above water. We don't look at what's causing the situation. And so in a relationship, the wife is yelling at the husband, and the husband's yelling at the wife when they come home, and they're arguing about something that's really stupid, but they didn't realize that maybe on the way home they saw a really serious accident, somebody was hurt badly. So that's affecting personal capability. On the flip side of it, if we take what's going on right now in the nation, we have individuals who are actually racist. We have individuals who think they should be sympathetic and don't understand what the problem is. And part of that is that they've never experienced and they didn't know about it. I've sat with very close friends And they'll say, well, I don't see what the problem is. Why is everybody so upset? And the response is, I says, let me let you wear my skin once, or hey, let's go into here and watch what happens. And it's as simple sometimes as if you go in uh, uh, a car dealership. Depending on the car dealership you go into, it may depend on if you get help depending on what you look like. And that's a simple example. And most car dealerships are really good places, but there are those that when you walk in the door, um, you're looked at differently. Okay. And sometimes you'll walk out, you come back in, there's a different salesperson there. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? That salesperson comes right up to you and says, hey, how are you? How can I assist you? Whereas the other one's like, yeah, what's up? Oh, you want to test drive it? Well, yeah, I want to test drive it. Okay, I'll go get the key. Versus the guy that says, oh, which one are you interested in? Let's go take a test drive. And so that's just a simple example. And it's subtle, but some people don't realize that they're doing that because quite often it's a learned behavior.
And also, it's a strength of a salesperson to try to size up someone so they can tell, oh, is it a guy or is it a guy with his wife? What does he
Mm-hmm.
look like? Look at his shoes. Does he have money? Is he
Right.
really, is he kicking the tires? Is he ready to buy? So that's a strength of a salesman, but it's also a downfall because that's like the most prejudiced skill that anyone could have is being a salesperson who tries to size people up and figure out, oh, it's that kind of guy. Okay, yeah, don't bother with him. He's not ready to buy a car from me. Which,
Right. And sometimes we can do it to ourselves. And I'll just say when I moved to Rhode Island, I moved from a state that, I was used to you live where you want, whatever, you buy the house you want, and so on. And so when I got here, I had a great realtor, very open and everything else. And so she showed me houses down in the Victorian houses and so on. And then she says, well, a lot of the professors I work with who happen to be people of color, they like to live in their community. And I said to her, I says, what community is that? And she looked at me like I had three heads because she was used to hearing something from other people. And she says, well, with other individuals who happen to be black. And I says, well, I was raised to buy the house that I want where I want to live. Oh, okay, that's fine, great. And she went on to continue showing me the houses. But we also create those perceptions, that that's what we want. Not necessarily. Just show me the house, show me this, but we also have to make sure the messages we send and how we send those messages.
so take me back to 2 Mondays ago. George Floyd's last moments of death. I don't know when the first videos were released. Maybe Tuesday. I watched it on Thursday.
Hmm.
Where were you? What did you hear? What did you do? Did you go right to the computer to look? Just take me there.
I saw it on the news, and I teared up, and I teared up a couple days in a row. And I teared up because I just didn't think this could happen still in our day and age. I also teared up because I look at the state of Rhode Island, and I knew how much the commission had been done through lots of community members from working with, Jewish challenges, Asian challenges, black challenges, and so on. And I understood the anger from people, but then I saw we were going to judge all of our law enforcement by the actions of a handful that just don't get it, that it's not acceptable, the behavior. But backing that up from law enforcement, we have people in our communities today still that don't get it either. The experience that Jennifer, had, that's unacceptable. Even in my little town down here, um, I've had, in the background, the N word used, and the way I responded to it, I shared with somebody and I said, I says, I know that you know how to get a hold of me. Please share with anybody my cell phone number, my house number. I'm willing to sit down and coffee. I says, but calling me a name, um, or something like that is not going to resolve the situation. Um, what's going to resolve anybody's concern is to sit down and talk to me one to one. As I am an individual, my name's Joe. Yes, I happen to be black. I also happen to be gay. But that's not. I'm up here serving the town. You have a concern, calling me a name is not going to resolve this, and that's where we have to put a stop. And the individual I was talking to is the one that actually said it. She didn't know that I knew she said it, but I said everything that happens in town, right, that gets said about me, I hear it. We're a small town, so just come to me and talk to me. You can. Why not? And that's really, we have to get away from the name calling. We have to get away from the slurs and all this stuff, and we have to start communicating. Probably the loss of George Floyd, um, it's it's a loss that really shouldn't have had to take place, but hopefully it is the last loss we have to go through as a nation. And as the state of Rhode Island, I think we as a state can be the forefront of setting an example of what really can happen when you bring people together.
I just this moment, I just received a hate mail. Just this moment. So, making fun of me and all that. So, Alinda Brito says, I'm so glad we're talking about this. Talking is the only way to heal. Do you find that those who are called out and confronted on their prejudice by your organization are remorseful and want to change? That's a great question, Alinda.
And that's a good question. I think it's a hard change for some people, but when you walk through a process with individuals, and I know that our coordinator, Dr. Glass, works with the schools and things. And with young people, it's very easy to start moving them forward. As adults, it takes a little bit more interaction. Even with some, my close friends that are close friends, but you hear them say stuff, you have to sit down and talk with them. Was in an environment where a young man used a racial slur related to the coronavirus, and I looked at him. I says, "Do you realize you're Hispanic and you happen to be gay?" I says, "What if somebody called you an inappropriate name? Would you appreciate it? Do you know that that's not acceptable anymore?
Right.
You can't use those words." And I think that's really the key to really is each of us as individuals have to take the energy and the onus and the ownership to really, and I say call out bad behavior, but really address it when you hear it. So people know that, hey, it's not acceptable. I don't appreciate you saying those words. And really hold each other accountable, because that is the only way we're going to start nipping this in the butt.
Yep. That's right. Steve Mason just says, Dave, call that hateful person out. I never thought it through. I didn't think that would even happen, but I'm probably not going to do that. Carly Boyce just said, active listening, not just listening on both parties.
Right.
And she also said, root of racism and bigotry is fear and ignorance. Thoughts on that?
No, I would totally agree. And I'm trying to remember the phraseology of one of my good friends over in Portsmouth. He was going to be in one of the parades and have his balloon up, but we were looking at phraseologies and things, and one of the things he gave me was this what is it, a dragonfly that has a lot of sayings on it. And one of the sayings, I actually have it here.
I'm actually in shock. I just got hate mail.
What's that?
I'm in shock.
Yeah,
That's a nasty. Wow. I'm in shock.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So he made a dragonfly.
Yep.
as you can see here, out of shells and birchwood. But one of the inside of the wings are different fortunes. But the main fortune said that I picked out immediately was the greatest danger could be your stupidity. And together we kind of rephrase that. Our greatest danger could be our ignorance. Is really what it comes down to. And I think as a society, we're on this earth. There's no place to go. We all need each other, and we have to work together. We're all a little different, and that's okay. But we have to all accept our differences and move and work together to achieve.
Yeah, no, that's words of the wise. Peg is asking, Peg Allspack, I have a question regarding the younger generation and the music they listen to with the words that are used in these songs. How do we fix that when for some, well, let me put it back, when for some it's all they know, it's all they hear? That is true. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. It's unfortunate. That's a great question.
And that is a very good question, I think, but a lot of that comes from we each see and hear things on a day-to-day basis, and we as adults, young people, younger people, have to really have the ability to digest and intelligently listen to what we're hearing, because music is an expression of somebody, good, bad, and different. But not all bad music is bad music. If you hear the message, sometimes you need to think about, is this the message I want to be part of?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to is,
Well, it's parenting.
Right. It starts at home. And quite often, people forget that what we teach at home is what our kids will grow up with. If we, and I'm going to be real blunt, my roots are from South Carolina. I go home to a family reunion and, sitting around, we call it the big house, which is where most of the relatives were born. But they would refer to each other with the N word. Okay. Now, my parents didn't use that word because I was raised in California, but I would call out my cousins and say, don't use a word that you don't want other people to call you.
So let me ask you that, because I've never asked a black person that. Why is that? It's almost like white people can never say that N-word. That's obviously, and yet, and I'm not saying all blacks are fine with it. They're not. But
Right.
there are, and it's the youth. It's the youth of America that's black, but not all youth. So I'm not trying to say all youth black use it,
Yeah.
but many do in rap bands and hip hop, and not even all hip hop because I love hip hop. But why is that? Is it just hip to be that on the edge and just drop the N word because it's cool? And
I think sometimes people don't know or have ever felt the pain of what the word means.
yeah,
If I, have that conversation with my parents, they grew up, in South Carolina. They were around, or they're still around, but they were around when water fountains were, black and white.
yeah.
And and so if you understood the context or the history of something, you probably, if you truly understood it, you wouldn't want to use the word. It's no different than each of the races and the cultures have specific words that they don't want used amongst each other. And we have to start someplace by not utilizing those hurtful words against each other. But at the same time, when somebody uses it when it's not appropriate, I will call a friend who happens to be black out on it, as well as a friend who's white or Asian when they use it, and they may not be using it derogatorily, but it's like, don't use that word around me. It's
So what do they say when you call them out? What do they say?
Well, I didn't mean it that way. Well, no, the fact is it's a word that you shouldn't use. You just, drop it from your vocabulary because it has history.
Because it's got history. So that's the education you share.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. It has history. Understand the history of what you're saying before you say it, because you're bringing it forward.
Yeah. Diane just said, my daughter was telling me that the singers get angry when a white person sings the N-word when it is right in their own song.
Right.
And then Carly is saying art is subjective, which is very true.
Right.
And then she says we have to be careful. There's a lot of history with the N-word. Yeah. Alindo, a lot of these questions are coming in. Alindo, sorry, Alinda. Alinda is black. She says black people started using that word to own it and take away its power. Ooh, it hasn't worked, and everyone needs to stop using it.
Right.
That's interesting. Again, education is key, says Carly. Listen, man, I could have you on forever. Quickly, what's next? Have you marched?
I have not marched because my action needs to be taken and a little differently. As the commission chair, our commission is meeting this Thursday. We usually meet every other month, but we've moved now to every month just because of the emotion and energy in our community right now. One of the things we're going to be discussing is really pushing forward. How do we get the message out there, about how do we react? Here's where you get to report stuff, and then working closely with law enforcement, because we want our chiefs to own the solution, to make a recommendation to the communities. This is what we're going to do to ensure that the right actions are being taken by an officer. That also, at the same time, as a commission, we want to make people know that if a police officer does react inappropriately, that here's how you report it, and you should feel confident to
There you
report
go.
it. Providence, has long had a community, oversight board, which is excellent, but not all the cities and towns have that. So we're going to be talking about, should the bigger cities in Rhode Island have that? And then what do we do about the smaller towns? So we're going to be discussing, does it make sense maybe to have a statewide, community, review board? So if something happens and it goes to a generic committee that's made up of community, law enforcement, and so on, that's able to have a conversation and review something so that we have steps in place for each of our community members to be able to respond and be able to confidently report something and know something's going to happen. And at the same time, it's going to be someplace that can be tracked. So those are our next steps, and that's the conversation we're going to be having Thursday at our commission meeting. Our meetings are public.
That's really good. You can go to it. I think everyone should go if you can.
And we are on Zoom. So if you go to this, the Secretary of State's website, you can search on Commission on Prejudice and Bias, and it'll show you how to, to log in to our meeting and observe the meeting, and hear the conversation that we're having.
So Carly just said, I've written Kyle, my chief police, and penned a letter to Mayor Haro. What should I do after that? She also is asking, I've spoken to several people who want to form a community coalition to help build a gap between community and law. So she is in, Carly, are you in Rhode Island or you're Massachusetts? I'm not quite sure. And then she answers it. I'm in Attleboro, Mass. Any help will be appreciated. Is there a branch there?
There would not be a branch of us there because we're in Rhode Island. However, if she reaches out to our commission, we will try and work with her to connect to her somebody in Attleboro.
Okay, so she's saying, can you give Dave your contact? I'd love to talk to you. So I have his contact info, and I will definitely share it with you. Closing questions here before we let you go. And I'm doing a live 5 in a second where if you have an iPhone, it only works on an iPhone, call me and I can FaceTime and you will become that box right there, right next to where Joe is. And you can respond and just talk about what you've learned tonight. Steve Mason, Joe, are you getting the state support that you need real quickly?
We're not getting the total state support we need yet, but we've now got a lot of ammunition to get that support. So,
wow, a lot of things are coming in here. Deb Burton, Zoom meeting info from Secretary of Advancing States. So she put the link in there. Do that. Suzanne
Secretary.
Bays, I'm so glad to hear that about those meetings. I was wondering what Rhode Island was doing about police policies. So we're going to have Sergeant Wesley Pennington on Thursday, State Police Sergeant. That's going to be interesting. And he's a friend of yours as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He sits on the commission representing the state police.
Nice. Aaron Claus says, thanks, Joe. Very informative. I learned a lot. Thank you for taking out some time of your day. Man, getting that little blink of the side of my eye and then looking really quickly at this hate mail. Someone said, imagine, Dave, what it's like. Joe probably gets that hundreds of times in your life. So you're used to it. I mean, I hope it hasn't calloused your heart, but it's opened you up more, because there is a danger in that, right?
Yeah, the way I was raised with the word resiliency with my parents, and they taught me, responding, and just through the education and everything else, is respond with a solution, because typically that person who's making those comments really has something that they're hurting with, and they're not sure how to deal with it. So that's how I approach it.
Right. Everyone's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. They love you. Great job, Joe. Great information. Cesar Patricio. Thanks, Dave, Alinda. Peter Lang, thank you, Joe, for sharing your story. I really appreciate you coming on. It's just a minute after 10, but hey, I don't have a commercial to go to, so.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want, Joe, leave a comment with your phone number, email, if you want to do that. If you don't feel comfortable, I'll share that with Carly.
Yeah, Sheriff Carly, if there's individuals that want to reach me, just have them reach out to you directly.
Great. Allison, thank you, Joe. Diane, keep up the great work. Whoa, everyone's thanking you. This is good. You need this, right? Sky Casper, heart, heart, heart. Awesome. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
That was good, man. That was Joe, man. He kept his calm. He kept his cool. He's a really good guy, and if anyone wants his contact info, if he doesn't, leave it in the comments, because if he doesn't, I get that. My email is right there, and that's how that guy got my email. And I think he emailed me. I don't know where it is now. It went to my text or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to skip to this really quick. This is a new segment. It used to be Dave Plays with Apps, but I threw that out the window for this week. It's Live for 5. So if you call me, and I'm serious, you can call me and share for 5 minutes what you think of tonight. I got to get the plugs plugged in here. Hold on. Hold on. Here I am. I'm back. My camera was flipping out a little bit. All right. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? I have no battery. I can't do it tonight. I forgot to plug my phone in. Anyway, I'll make sure that's ready for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I guarantee. So just so you know, if you want to watch all week, Live for 5 is after the interview. There's my number. Where is it? Right there. There's my number. Call me. If you have an iPhone, not an Android, it'll just be a regular phone call. But if it's an iPhone, I just hit on the FaceTime app, and boom, split screen. I'll move over here. You're over there. So I think Joe, did he just he just reached out to something. So Carly says, yes, please. G-Man White, thanks, Joe. Call the Carpenter, big yellow thumbs up. Kevin Wilkinson, we need to be more like Joe. Nice. Dan Izzo, thanks for sharing. All the comments are coming in. Your picture is so clear. Well, now that makes up for the hate mail. Thanks, Sky Casper. I like your profile. You're kissing a seal, I think. That's cool. Got the seal of approval. It's 10:04. Want to get you kids to bed. I go from 9 to 10. Again, if you're watching, this isn't typical what I do. I want to say I have more fun, but this is fun. I'm spending time with friends, but it's serious. So there's nothing funny. I usually have a closing joke. I'm not doing that, obviously. I just want to save a lot of time for the guests. Tomorrow night, though, like the page, first of all, and follow me. Because tomorrow night, a 16-year-old boy is on. That's all I'm going to say. You want to be listening to this tomorrow night. All right? I definitely want to listen. Justice Smith, a real good kid. A real good kid. Any plans on having the Rhode Island branch of the NAACP? Okay, sorry I had to... Sky Cooper. I like the black and white. Good. I'm glad you like the black and white. But just so you know, I can go into color too. I can get angry as well. Get red there. So, but I'm going to keep it in black and white for the whole week. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This worked out really well. I'm very encouraged. Bad letter and not. Joe was great. And I'm so glad that that's there. That website is there. Look in the comments, find it, click it, bookmark it, tell people about it. That's how the word gets out. Okay? Thank you, Jennifer Rourke. Yes, and follow Jennifer Rourke. She's running. Back her up. Unless you disagree with her, of course, but find out about her. Jennifer, I'd love to have you on the show. Maybe tomorrow night I'll have my phone charged. Sorry, I told you that there's a possibility you could be on if you call me. Sorry about that. Another awesome show. Thank you, guys. I got to go. I have finished my Pinot Grigio. It's very good. That's the only thing that's consistent with the show. I still drink wine. Take care. Everyone has an expiration date. Remember that. Everyone has an expiration date. Be kind to one another.